What's up, guys? Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. In today's episode, I'm going to go over a controversial shipping method. Also, I'm going to go over 3 things that have been working really well for me. So please smash the like button and consider subscribing if you guys like these tips to help you grow your online store. So my controversial shipping method is, should I just ship to my customers in this clear poly mailer? Most of my items are under $30. They're not super expensive. The thickness of this poly mailer is 2 millimeters, which is the same thickness as a normal poly mailer that I use to ship. So is it really necessary to put this into an additional poly mailer and waste that plastic? And also, is it really going to affect the presentation a customer getting this? I've actually received probably thousands of packages in my life. It's never come in a clear poly mailer, so I don't know if that will piss my customer off or not, but it'd be really easy in my system because 3789, my bin code, is actually on the shipping label. So it would be really difficult to ship the wrong item when the actual number is the same number that's on the shipping label. So I might actually try it out and see if any customers notice, or if they leave me negative feedback because they're worried about people stealing their $30 item, then, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I think it'll be fine. Most of my items actually ship priority. So I don't have a lot of first class items, and the ones that I do, sometimes I get multiple orders. So ends up going priority anyway. So there's not going to be very many of them that go out straight into package, but let me know in the comment section below if it's a terrible idea, if it's a very sustainable earth forward idea, or you think I'm crazy. Either way, let's get into the other things that are working for me. So I've basically decided that it does not matter how much knowledge you have in the reselling game. Not so much. The main thing is your behavior. You can have all the knowledge in the world, know about all the, be on the lookout for items. You can know everything about the procedures, everything about eBay news, everything about every single YouTuber who talks about reselling, and still be terrible at reselling. You just need a behavior change. And if you have this behavior change, you'll have an awesome store. The one behavior you need really is a listing habit that's consistent. So for me, I'm averaging around $10,000 per week in sales, but my listing habit has been starting to improve since that's my main focus. Currently, my listings that are going up each week is at 20,000. So that's been my goal, because 20,000 times 52 weeks is now a 7-figure store. I'm trying to do that with just a couple of contractors and just stick in one category, which is clothing. So that'll lead me into my second point, but the first point is your listing habit determines everything. How much time you have is going to let you know how many listings can you realistically do. If you only have 10 hours per week, you probably can't do that many listings. So you need to spend the majority of your time looking for home runs in your area. That's how I would approach it. If you would just go to garage sales, estate sales, I would go to local auctions. If you're just trying to make an extra really high income in a short period of time on a high hourly wage, I would just get the most valuable items you can, list between 10 and 50 items per week, which is between 2 or 3 items a day, all the way up to 7 items per day. That would take an hour and a half once you get your processes in place. That's how I would approach it with only 10 hours. If you have a listing habit like myself, where I'm approaching more than 200 items per day, it actually takes like between 12 and 16 hours to list that many items. I personally do not want to work 12 or 16 hours a day. That's why I have contractors that help me. So you can determine what kind of listing habit you want based on what kind of effort you want to put into the business. Also, that's going to lead us into point number 2, which is your sourcing habit. Are you looking for items that are all replenishable, meaning you can reorder them, or they're similar, or you're working with manufacturers? Those long-term type of deals take longer. You have to spend more time developing a niche, understanding a specific market, and testing. So those take a long time. If you have like a 1 or 2 year long horizon and you're not in a hurry, you can slowly get good at a niche, and that's probably the second best. The first best is the most convenient, and the way that most people should start is you just find really, really high-end items on a small scale where you are. Limit your listing. You can just use your phone, list all of them. Second best would be you start to develop a niche, you start to get into a specific category, you start to spend a little bit more time. Maybe you hire some help part-time to help you 1 day a week. I don't recommend jumping in with a part-time or full-time employee like I did. I made a lot of mistakes doing that. I would recommend that you guys start with just a person that helps once a week. Ideally, that person is related to you, so you actually trust them, and that you trust them to give you feedback on what could be improved in your system. So first step, work on your listing habit. How many items do you want to list per week? If you want to make thousands and thousands of dollars a day, probably need to list thousands of items, maybe hundreds of items. If you're looking for an extra $500 a month, you don't need to list that many items. Probably just like 1 to 5 items a day. So think about how much effort you want to put in. Secondly, that's going to dictate what kind of sourcing you do. Long-term sourcing takes a long time, but has the biggest payoff. You actually having a relationship with the supplier, that relationship could be worth millions of dollars. I would say that almost all of my inventory just comes from 4 suppliers, and it took me multiple years to get those suppliers to sell me clothing. And the reason why it took 4 years instead of just like 6 months to a year is because I dabbled in a million different categories. Okay, so right now my biggest obstacle is that I sell in too many categories. If I just threw away all these categories that are not related to clothing, and even the good ones, even clothing, even shoes, even high-end electronics, even something that I can go to the store for $1 and sell it for $500, actually is like borrowing from the future success of my clothing company for a short-term gain. So I don't recommend that. If you are looking long-term, like you're gonna do your eBay store for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it just makes the most sense to put all of that effort into one niche, become really good at it, and develop those suppliers that make you $10,000 to $1 million or more per supplier, okay, versus cobbling together a bunch of different things. Another example of what's really popular right now is called multi-passionate, right? That means you drive Uber on the weekends, you have a couple of contracting jobs here or there, you're a part-time writer, you're a part-time teacher, you also babysit for your friends once a week. You cobble that all together, and to be honest, usually that's less money than you just getting a normal job, and it usually takes more time. So I recommend, if to build a career out of reselling in a specific niche, I've chosen clothing specifically because it's abundant in my area. So it depends on where you live. If I lived somewhere where it was not abundant, I'd probably pick a different category. So look around to where I call it an unfair advantage, but a lot of people have told me that it's not unfair. It's just your advantage. So look for an advantage that you can have over other people, because it's very crowded. For me, where I live, my square footage of this place is almost $3 per square foot. So much more expensive than somewhere where a space might cost you 50 cents or 75 cents per square foot. But I also have access to lots of high-end stuff, because if California was a country, it would be the 5th highest GDP. Actually, if you look at how diverse and how different California is from one place to another, it kind of does seem like a different country, especially living here. So there's so many people here, there's so many different industries, there's so many different opportunities, and it comes with that higher standard of living. If you live somewhere where you can minimize your expenses, let's say you actually run your eBay business at home, that's massive. Okay, so what you want to do is, number one, develop that listing habit. Determine what you even want your listing habit to be. If you don't want to list hundreds and hundreds of items, then you need to focus on replenishable items that you can buy 100 of the same thing, or 1,000 of the same thing, or you need to focus on similar items. Secondly, sourcing, you're going to start narrowing down, thinking long term. I'm looking for relationships that pay you, in my opinion, $10,000 or more, or it's not worth it. That's why I've decided not to do any consulting, because when I consult with people, that's it. The relationship really just ends after that hour, and I'd rather invest that time into something that's more long term. And I've thought, like, should I be partnering with eBay businesses? Because I sort of have unlimited supply in the clothing category, not in other categories, but in women's clothing, I could get pretty much any number of supply. Not men's, I would prefer men's clothing. I currently don't have endless men's inventory, but women's inventory is everywhere. I could scale that potentially with a partner. So talking to somebody to start a business that can make millions of dollars, that would make sense. Okay, but talking to someone to help them adjust their store so they get a few more sales, honestly, the better use of your time is to join our Facebook group with Tech and Sports. He is at the, I think, 30,000 a week listing habit. That's how much quantity of revenue he's listing, right? And of course, that number is less important than the amount of profit that you're listing per week. But that'll give you an idea. On the 20,000 goal that I'm listing per week, ideally in a perfect world, it would be $7,000 profit. So I like to be listing $7,000 profit per week on $20,000 in sales. That would be my objective. Easier said than done, but that's the point, because you don't want to just only look at the revenue part, because as someone mentioned with this big store, PharmaPacks, they're the largest FBA seller, sell multiple $1 million a day, but they're not profitable, right? So what's the point of doing that much revenue and not earning a lot of money? There's a store called Linda's Closet, and if you look at their store, it's only twice as big really as my store and Tech and Sports' store combined. The two of us combined have 4 full-time employees. That store that's twice as big has 110 employees. Okay, so that's a lot of overhead. That's totally different. Okay, you've got an HR person, you've got janitorial probably, you've got a million different, you got accounts payable and accounts receivable, you've got human resources. They have a lot of bloat, as Tech and Sports would call it, in that type of an organization, whereas we're like really tiny operations that are just kind of nimble in one specific category. When you start to sell in lots of different categories, you need more space, you need more people, you need more expertise. It starts to get a lot more challenging. So one, figure out how many items you want to list, work on your listing habit. So whatever you want to list and your habit needs to match. Okay, so for me personally, I want to list 1,400 items per week. The system that I've created can list 1,600 items per week. I know my limitations. I would not be able to really list more than that without everything, all the wheels coming off, as they say. So listing habit, then work on your sourcing. Think about long-term things that are lasting 3, 5, 10 years. And then really, if you want to supercharge your results, start aggressively getting rid of different types of categories. Just get good at one, right? Rarely is a surgeon also a plumber, right? LeBron James is not in the NFL and the NBA. He's not playing Major League Baseball either. He's just playing one sport, because you really only have time to get really good at one thing. And I think you should be multi-passionate for fun, okay? I bought a whole bunch of Pokemon cards at the McDonald's release for myself, okay? Instead of robbing myself of the joy of trying to flip them to make a couple $100, what's the point of that when I'm trying to make a couple $1,000 at work, focusing on one niche? Then I can buy 100 Happy Meals if I want to for fun. I bought 25 Happy Meals for myself, okay? I can do that now because I'm focused on one niche. I don't have to flip any of them. I can just keep all 25 packs of Pokemon cards. So hopefully this is useful, guys. I appreciate you. If you want to join the mentorship with Tech and Sports and I, it's very straightforward. It's $35 a month. We have 5 coaches. We have 9 hours of live coaching per week where you share what you're working on, and then we just give you straight advice on how to fix it. That's all there is to it. You don't need an expensive course. Don't spend thousands of dollars learning. Just get around people who are actually doing it. Inside that group, we have around 300 people who do this for a living, or at least they're trying to make $500 a month, or they just started, but the procedure of mentorship is identical. You present what you're working on, everybody chimes in, and then you move onward to the next day. That's all there is to it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Happy Lunar New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. I hope you guys have prosperity and good health in this upcoming year. So everyone take care. Till next time, make progress daily.